Hey everybody, it's Christina Holloway here, and today we're going to talk about the 7 signs that you work for a toxic boss. Many times we can feel like we're really working for somebody who has our back, and then there are red flags. And at first we think, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm being suspicious, maybe I'll give this person another chance. And then they keep doing more and more behavior that's leading you inside your head to think, am I really in the right place? Or does this person really have my best interest at heart? Once we talk about these 7 toxic behaviors, we're also going to talk about ways that you might be able to correct the situation, although you may find that if you work for a toxic boss, your best option is to figure out an exit. How are you going to find your way out of that situation? And that could mean either transferring to another department or leaving the company altogether. And if that's the case, you have to have an exit strategy. All right, so let's get started. Number 1, micromanaging. Not a surprise. If you find that you're working with a boss who constantly tells you to change things or make sure you do every single detail of a project the way they want to have it done, then you're running into problems. A boss should be able to show up and tell you, here in general is the framework by which we get assignments completed. You then should be able to figure out a process that works best for you while you're working inside that framework. So if a micromanaging boss comes to you and says, this happened to me, I don't like the color of the spreadsheets that you've created. Can you change all the colors? And here's what I want the colors to look like. But they don't give you feedback on the content or what's inside the report or if the report is even on target. You're looking at a person who focuses in the wrong area. They're not focused on the big picture. They're more focused on you doing things the way they want them done. If they're focusing on details that are irrelevant, you may be looking at a micromanaging boss. Number 2, steals your ideas. I just had this conversation today. I was talking to one of my clients and she said, I'm really surprised. I had to collaborate with a colleague and he actually came to me and said, how are we going to do this? And she said, I have these ideas. And he said, great, let's sit down and talk about it. I mean, you know where it's going to go. He presented everything as his own. And so she said, this was shocking. She had never had this happen to her before. And she's a director. She's way up there. So she's struggling now with understanding how she's supposed to deal with a person who steals her ideas. Now, you could have a boss who is the same way. He'll tell you, hey, this is a team effort. We all contribute here. You know, we're all presenting together. But then when he puts up the material, he'll say, I, leading my team, came up with this idea, and the rest of you are just supposed to fall in line. But if a boss doesn't give you recognition or give you some sort of reward or some sort of acknowledgement that you're actually working towards something or having some sort of achievements in the work you're doing, you're eventually going to have apathy and you're going to disengage from the work. And that just really leads to not being happy and then wanting to leave. Number 3, isn't capable of delegating anything. So a boss can be a very busy person who is usually managing projects from a higher level. Now, if that person constantly holds on to assignments or responsibilities that could easily be something you could tackle or learn from so that you could grow your skill set, then there's a problem. A boss who constantly holds on to all of the delegation of the bigger stuff and just gives you the small stuff. Hey, can you file this paperwork? Hey, can you put these things on the shared server? Hey, could you start making these documents and putting them all together? If it's small, piddly stuff, and that's the only way they know how to delegate, that's a problem. They should be delegating tasks to you that help you elevate and develop higher skills so that you can grow inside the business. Number 4, gaslighting. You should be able to contribute during meetings and be able to contribute to some type of project. You should be able to speak up and say, here's an idea that maybe we didn't consider. If you're in meetings and you have a boss who says, oh, don't worry about that, or that's not important, or no one's going to really care about that area, that is gaslighting. So you don't want to be working with somebody who constantly puts you down during meetings and says, oh, thanks for contributing, but your ideas are no good. Now, every once in a while, we do end up sharing something. Our boss might tell us, this isn't going to work right now. Let's table it. If you can hear something like that where they say, let's consider it at another time, then it's less about them telling you, oh, you're being silly, and more about them saying, not at this moment, right? You just don't need somebody saying, oh, your ideas or your contributions don't matter, because that's not true. Number 5, doesn't give you a path forward. This is my favorite one. You're working for a toxic boss when they say this statement: I'd love to give you a promotion, but you're doing amazing work right here. If I let you go, then I won't have anybody to do the work here. If anybody tells you that you leaving or getting a better job is a negative for them, then you're working for a toxic person. A person who blocks your transfer or blocks your promotion or blocks anything that allows you to have growth in your career at that company is bad. And as soon as somebody says something like that, the first thing you want to do is get out. You have to find a path forward. You have to find a path around that person if it's possible. And if not, you have to get out of that company. You're not going to be able to get around a boss who behaves that way, and that's going to be damaging to your career progression. Number 6, outright lies. You don't want to work for somebody who you start to find out is lying to you about anything. So I had an assignment one time, and actually I was helping out in a department. And I was told by the lead, you don't need to work on this particular project this time. We don't need you. Fine. My name wasn't on the project. I had nothing to do with any of it. And of course, they came up short and they had mismanaged the entire thing. I heard from our mutual boss above who said, can you get on a call with us? And then said, she's saying that you refuse to do the work. So this person clearly was not going to take accountability for how she failed, and she tried to throw it at me. And I said, well, I wasn't assigned to this assignment this time. I wasn't assigned to this project. So I don't understand why she would be saying that I refused to do the work or that I fell short and part of it was my fault. There was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of debate, and people at the top were like, are we sure that this really played out the way it did? That woman ended up asking for a transfer and getting out as soon as she could because she got caught in a massive lie. So you may not have as much authority if this is not a peer but a boss. As soon as you find out, though, that this person will say, well, it wasn't really my fault. My team is part of it too, and some of them dropped the ball, or tries to blame it on you, you have a problem. This is a toxic boss. And number 7, not very PC. I recently had a client who told me there was an executive that she was assigned to work with. And on one trip, she had gone over to his office where he worked with his team, and she was observing him. And he poked fun at everybody, thinking that it was just all fun and games. And at one point, he told a heavyset guy, hey, how many lunches did you have today? And she did not like that. So a toxic boss is really going to be somebody who has no self-awareness, thinks that he's really funny, can come across as quite abrasive, and doesn't understand the implications of the things he says. What you can pay attention to is if he starts picking on people because he feels threatened or he's just not being successful in a particular assignment, he may start to act out, which is to start calling people names or ridiculing them or putting them down in front of other people. Very toxic type of person. Also, someone who doesn't respect diversity in the workplace is equally going to be a person who tends to latch on to bullying people who are not like him. So someone of color who might not be like that person, or a different gender who's just easy pickings, or somebody who might be a different shape or size and stature. Easy for a boss to start fixating on how to make people feel like they are other without creating cohesiveness or community. It's just a pervasive type of behavior that when it starts to show up, you might want to consider, how do I get as far away from this person's behavior as possible? Now, those are the 7 areas of a toxic boss. How can you fix this or alleviate it? Like I said, some of the situations might be areas where you can speak up for yourself or bring them up to HR. I didn't include harassment, but clearly if a person starts harassing you, go to HR. Otherwise, you're going to start seeing that many of these issues are things that you just need to speak up for yourself. And if you do call that person out, it is about being assertive and holding your own, creating boundaries, and being able to speak your own truth to power. However, you're probably feeling quite vulnerable. So it's not going to be easy to make a statement like that. You're not going to be feeling quite powerful. Also, don't worry if you can't make statements like that. And if you feel like it's better for you to leave, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling like you're bullied, especially if people around you tell you there's always high turnover, there's nothing we can do, this guy's protected by people around him, then you have to create an exit strategy. What does an exit strategy look like? Well, you want to start creating a network of connections, either inside the company or outside the company, and then start looking about where you can land. This is no longer about trying to figure out if you can get a better job with better pay or a higher position. You can, but don't make that your focus because it could take longer. What you want to do is make a lateral move as soon as possible, especially if a toxic boss is making you very uncomfortable at work. Get out as soon as you can. From there, you can then figure out where you want to go after that. A lateral move doesn't always hurt you. A lateral move puts you in front of a new audience where you can start building your career from there. All right, so that's it for this video on the 7 signs of a toxic boss. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.